This morning, I woke up with so many of my previous limiting beliefs, past scenarios that have happened, things that other people have said about me, things that I'm just piecing together that other people have said about me, like, going back like 20 years even, all coming to the surface at once this morning for review. And so what I want to share during my gardening thoughts here today while I water my garden is sometimes when we are doing the work of clearing self-limiting beliefs or, stories that no longer serve us, or these different like weights that we've been carrying either like about ourselves or in our bodies, or, shame, often it's deep shame. When we have been doing the work to clear that, or whether it's like, you're clearing it from your biofield, your energetic body, or you're going to therapy and you're doing it intellectually through the mind, or you're doing something like somatic work where you're actually going into the body and exploring sensation. And maybe it's somatic parts work where you're bringing up those different parts of yourself that have been here and protecting you and trying to serve you for all of this time, but are no longer doing that in a way that like really serves your life today. No matter how it is that you're doing this, okay, there's so many ways of accessing those different parts of self, or those different beliefs or blockages, if you want to call them that, or barriers, whatever it is that you are trying to work through. There are so many different ways of accessing that. When we do that, often we can hit this point where we feel as though we've done the work. We kind of feel like, oh, those things don't bother us anymore. We don't think about those people anymore. Those things that somebody said about us when we were 15 years old, like whatever it might be, right? They're not impacting us anymore. And then all of a sudden it can feel as though they all come to the surface, maybe one by one, depends on how much you're working through at a time. If you're doing a lot of this work at once, it can get a little overwhelming with all of them popping up at once. And often they're quite interconnected, right? So one thing is connected to another, is connected to another. It's not just this single piece. So that's another area where we can have a lot of them show up at one time. But what can happen is that here we are kind of like trucking along. We think we've done the work. We think that we're good to go. We don't think that we're being impacted by these things anymore. And then bam, suddenly they all come up to the surface, or one of them, a big one, comes up in a really big way or something like that. And what I notice in the people that I work with, and I would say from my early journey as well, except I've been down this road so many times now that I just kind of know the routine. It's like you've taken the same trip so many times, you don't have to check Google Maps, right? So is that when these things come back up to the surface, people can start to panic. They can start to think like, oh, I thought that I already worked through this, and how come it's all coming up again? And it can feel really uncomfortable, because now we have felt like it's over and we never need to view that again. We never need to be with that again. And sometimes it's, like I want to honor that sometimes it's really excruciating to go through that work in the first place. So it makes sense that some people would panic when it starts to pop up again, because they feel like they don't want to go back there, right? It was so painful the first time, and now they just don't want to revisit it. They don't want to go back there again. What I want to share is that often when these pieces are coming back up to the surface after a lot of this work has been done, it's often not a sign that the work wasn't done. So sometimes these different things can come back up as a point of review for us to like view these things from a different lens. We can view them from this more evolved. I was going to say healed. I don't really want to say healed, but this more evolved version of ourselves, this more aware version or present version of ourselves, we can come back to those places to view it from there. We can also come back to these places to like see how far that we have come. We can come back to them maybe because there's another layer there that is asking us to look at it. But there is another reason that sometimes these things come up. And this is what was happening for me this morning. And I think it's where when these things happen, we can take one of two roads, and we have power in that. We have conscious choice if we want to make that choice. So when these things come up, a lot of people begin to panic. They begin to attach to that idea. They begin to believe that the work wasn't done yet, or that they, are going to have to go back into this really painful thing again, or that they still have work to do. We get caught in this like perpetual healing cycle where we like always are just looking for the next thing to heal, right? And so have you been there? Because I've been there. So if you are stuck in this perpetual healing cycle, and then these thoughts come back or these scenarios come back, either they've come up through your life or they're showing up in your body or they're showing up in your mind. For me, it was like just when I woke up this morning, I was just kind of, that's where my brain was going. All these different things were landing, and a lot of different pieces were being connected, and connections were being made that had not been made before without effort on my part, right? It's just landing there. So what happens is if we take that and we start to panic and we start to attach ourselves to this idea that this is the next layer that we have to heal, that there is still something here for us, that we're not worthy yet because this thing still came up in our mind, whatever the story might be that we might be telling ourselves, right? To make it so that we're not quite good enough, or we're not like there yet, wherever this there is that we think we need to be. And we can start to panic. So then we start to develop new inner conflicts around this thing that we actually like kind of already sorted out, right? We already went there. This can be a protective mechanism to stop us from going to where actually we're meant to go, because maybe we're not feeling equipped or ready or resourced enough to go into the next thing. So it feels more comfortable to stay where we've already been and kind of keep cycling on the same thing. But you also don't have to move into that next thing yet. You can just take like a pause and be like, wow, look at how far I've come. Let's go have some fun, right? We're allowed to like still have joy in our lives. And so the other route though, is that when this shows up, we can observe those thoughts, and it's okay to evaluate, like, is there still something here for me? Why is this showing up in my life right now? But there's a really good chance that it's just part of your integration. And integration is one of the steps that a lot of people seem to just like skip, right? They do the work, they're maybe like comfortable in the trauma work, or they're comfortable in kind of like some of the heavier stuff, but they're not as comfortable in sitting with the results and in letting that work land in their body and taking that time to pause and to be with that and to let it fully integrate and to let it show up in their physical world, in their body, in their life, in their relationships, right? So sometimes when these things start to all come back up to the surface, and there's not a whole lot of emotion still behind it, there's not a lot of attachment there unless we create the new attachment, like I mentioned before. Often it's just our body and brain recalibrating and coming back into center from this new state of being, this new level of our evolution, like however you want to call it, this new growth point. That has to be recalibrated in our body, in our brain, in our energy body. And then all of those systems have to come into harmony so that they can show up in how we automatically act in our lives. If we do all of this work, but then we never integrate it, then how we move through the world doesn't really change, right? And then we end up in the same scenarios over and over and over again because how we're showing up doesn't change. How we're responding to people doesn't change, right? So the next time that you've been doing a whole bunch of work and a bunch of it starts to show up, like in your brain or in your life, like through scenarios, through thoughts, through your body, whatever it might be, before you panic and before you tell yourself a story about like how you're not good enough yet, or you didn't do the work well enough and here it is again, what if you were to just pause and observe what was happening in your system and observe, do I have really strong feelings towards this? Is this still a really big trigger for me? Is my body or my brain or my energy body just trying to send me a message? Is this inviting me to review how far I've come and like how much work I actually have already done, and that maybe I do deserve a break and to have some fun and to get some joy in my life? Or is this showing me the next step? Is this showing me, the next layer of this that I need to explore on my own time when I'm ready? Is this just a piece of my integration? Is this my brain and my body and my energy body just recalibrating and connecting a few dots for me, like intellectually, cognitively, bringing those dots, those connections into my conscious awareness that maybe my body or my energy body had picked up on a long time ago, but my brain just wasn't quite ready to see yet? And is this just a piece of my integration? Do I actually not really have to do anything with this except for just allow it, be with it, observe it, sit with it, maybe like celebrate it, right? Like look at what it is, celebrate it. Is this something that I worked really hard on and it's not impacting me in the same way anymore? And this is worth celebrating. And, maybe I just need to go out and have some fun. While you're here, look at all my beautiful strawberries. Oh, I love it when I come out and they're all so bright and red. There's definitely some bugs getting to some, but this guy's ready. Look at that. So nice. I love my mornings in the garden. I hope you're having a really good day, and I'd love to hear how this landed for you. Have you experienced this? What is your tendency? Is your tendency to panic? Is your tendency to just like dive into that next layer? Is your tendency to repeat the same area over and over again so that you don't have to look at the next step that you might not actually feel very ready for or feels less familiar to you? So let me know. I'd love to hear from you.